Congresswoman, we're delighted to have you here. I want to ask right off the bat, it seems like there are some folks in the Democratic Party that are scared to death of you. Why are they afraid of Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, first of all, aloha, Governor. Merry Christmas. It's
Thank
great
you.
To speak with you. Look, I love our country, and I appreciate very much the vision that our founders had for our country, that they envisioned that we would be led by those who are focused on serving the American people and a government that is truly of, by, and for the people. As you know well, that's not what we have. We have a government of, by, and for the rich and powerful. And as president, I aim to change that. I aim to return our government to one that is truly of the people, by the people, and for the people. And unfortunately, the establishment in Washington just doesn't like that. They don't like what I stand for, and they don't like that they can't control me.
You have described yourself as a hawk when it comes to fighting terrorists, but a dove when it comes to engaging in, as you would put it, and I think all of us would agree, endless wars. Define the difference between a fight against terrorism and then a fight with regimes and nations and within nations, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction to make. And, you know, this term endless wars and forever wars is kind of being thrown around a lot, especially in this presidential primary, without any specificity about what that actually means. And I bring the experience of having served as a soldier for almost 17 years and deploying twice to the Middle East to understand that we must continue to work to defeat Al-Qaeda, the terrorist group that attacked us on that day, and other jihadist groups like ISIS, and those who threaten the safety and security of the American people, and to do so with a smart and effective strategy. However, we must end this longstanding regime change war policy, these wars that have cost us tremendously as taxpayer dollars, over $6 trillion since 9/11 alone, going towards waging these regime change wars in countries like Iraq and Libya and Syria, wars that have actually undermined our national security, strengthening these terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, making us less safe.
How dangerous is it that we've had wars that were essentially waged singularly by a president, not the current one, but in the past, rather than having Congress vote on engaging in these battles? How does that frustrate you, both as a major in the Army as well as a member of Congress?
Yeah. Our Constitution very clearly delineates responsibilities between the president and the executive branch and Congress, setting clear that Congress is the body that is responsible for deciding whether or not to declare war. Now, it's unfortunate that for a very long time now, Congress has given up that responsibility largely to the executive branch, and we've seen presidents abusing their authority and their power in going out and waging wars, regime change wars, toppling dictators in other countries where we have no business intervening, and that actually undermine the interests of the American people and our national security. This is why I think you know our friend Congressman Walter Jones, who passed away last year, but he and I worked on legislation together called the No More Presidential Wars Act that goes back to our Constitution and says that there should be no more of these presidential wars. Congress has to do their job and fulfill that responsibility that our founders laid out for us in the Constitution.
This past week, another Democrat dropped out. This time it was Kamala Harris. A lot of people say that was because of the evisceration that she took at your hand in the second debate. I'll be honest with you, when she first started, I thought she's going to be a real contender. She was articulate, charismatic. She had a California background, lots of donors. She did well in the first debate. Second debate, you took her on. She never recovered. Do you somewhat feel a little responsible for the complete collapse of her campaign, that she never recovered from that debate?
I think what's important to focus on is, I think, a couple of things. Number one is that the truth matters, and voters deserve to be informed so that they can make the best decision possible about who they would like to see as our Democratic nominee and eventually as the next president of the United States. Number two, I think that we've seen how the media was really helpful in not helpful to her campaign and some of the other candidates who are running, and not asking the tough questions. You know, I should not have been the first person to bring up Senator Harris's record as Attorney General in California, and raising questions that she really didn't have answers to. So I think the focus that I have had and that I continue to have through our campaign is really about leadership and experience and action, not just words and rhetoric that you hear on the campaign trail, but actually bringing forward that experience and the record that I have in Congress of bringing people together, working across the aisle, focusing on putting service above self, putting the best interests of our country above all else. I am the only candidate that's speaking out strongly to bring about an end to these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and nuclear arms race so that we can redirect our taxpayer dollars actually towards serving the needs of the American people. And what's really incredible, Governor, is that as I'm carrying this message to people all across New Hampshire, all across the country, while we can agree to disagree on some other issues, this issue is one that is bringing Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, and Independents together to join our campaign, building this unifying coalition that is necessary, yes, to defeat Donald Trump in 2020, most importantly, to be able to bring about the kind of positive change in our country that we need in order to bring about a government that is truly of, by, and for the people, bringing people together in order to say, hey, our focus is on serving the needs and the interests of the American people.
You were speaking about bringing people together. Is the impeachment process bringing people together? Is that a good thing? Your speaker now has said there will be articles of impeachment. We have an election less than a year away. Is that the best way to get rid of a president?
People have been talking about impeaching Trump since right after he got elected. And I've expressed concern about this partisan pursuit of impeachment because of the extremely divisive impact that it would have on our country. I think it's important that I've said it for a long time. Look, I plan on defeating Donald Trump in 2020. I believe I'm the only candidate that can do that, and that the best way to do so is for the people, the voters in this country, to be able to make sure their voices are heard at the ballot box. Now, I voted for the inquiry to begin because I thought there were serious concerns that were raised about abuse of power. I thought Congress should go through and bring evidence to the forefront. I'm looking through that information that's been presented, see what else is out there that has not yet been heard and presented before I make a final decision on voting on any articles of impeachment.
A lot of the Democrats are saying they haven't made a decision, but 17 out of the 24 members of the Judiciary Committee had already voted for an impeachment. So how many people in your party are actually waiting, as you have described, to see what the evidence is? And if you became president and this becomes the new norm, as soon as the election is over, let's impeach the person who won because those of us who lost didn't like it. Where does that take our country?
Yeah, that's exactly the concern that I've had for a very long time is that making this the new norm, that impeachment is pursued for partisan interests alone, really does undermine our democracy, because it would do exactly what you're saying, where if this is done for purely partisan purposes, then whoever the losing party is in the next election will once again try to find excuses to pursue impeachment because they don't like the decision that the voters made in the previous election. This is where we go from being a democracy to really being a banana republic, and it has a very dangerous potential outcome for our country. It's why it's necessary for all of our leaders in our country, Democrat and Republican and Independent, to keep at the forefront what is in the best interest of our country. Put country before partisan politics. Make sure we're putting the well-being of the people of our country first.
One quick final question. You've been out on the campaign trail. You've been on a lot of those trails of Iowa, New Hampshire, many of the other early states. What's been the biggest surprise that you have found on a personal level going out there and connecting with voters in a state very different than Hawaii?
How much it is that we share in common. You know, as different as New Hampshire may be from Hawaii, especially at this time of year, where Hawaii, you know, we grew up, Christmas time was was 80 degrees and going out for a morning surf. A little bit different out here in New Hampshire. But what we see, whether it's in New Hampshire, Iowa, or different states across the country, is, including in Hawaii, is the beauty that we see in the American people. You know, that when it comes right down to it, as you and I may disagree on different issues, Governor, that at our core, we love our country and we appreciate so much the values and the principles and freedoms enshrined in our Constitution. And by going back and actually remembering what it is that unites us, we see the path forward shining bright about how we can bridge the divides that we're seeing, unfortunately, tearing our country apart, and come together, treating each other with respect.
Well, political and policy differences aside, I don't think anyone can question your patriotism and love of country. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor.
You can keep up with her campaign for president at Tulsi2020.com and check her out on Facebook and Twitter at Tulsi Gabbard.